Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to NickTalks. It's been a short little while, and the reason for that being exactly what we're going to get into in about 30 seconds. Cool. So, hope everybody's doing great. Thank you for returning and waiting patiently and watching. Thank you so much. Hope everyone is doing well and getting that bag. So, I believe I mentioned it in the last video about this experiment that I'm running. So this entire video is just going to be dissecting that full experiment, getting into why I did it, the parameters of the experiment, how long it went for, what I noticed during, and then now what I am noticing post, right? And takeaways and whatnot there. So first off, I kind of wanted to talk about, I'll do like a little bit of an overview of this experiment, and then I want to talk about something real quick before we get into everything about it. So the experiment being, obviously, I'm constantly talking about ways that I am trying to make my life better, more productive, more stable, things like this, make my mindset more focused, just trying to optimize everything, really. And so I was curious what the outcome would be if I got rid of everything that I'm normally doing, everything that I've grown to do over the last year or so, and did pretty much the exact opposite. I wanted to see, one, if everything was going to work, like if everything that I think that I'm doing right is actually right, or if I'm just, stroking my ego essentially, or if it does actually work, and if so, like, how long do you have before you start losing progress and before you start noticing detriment, before things start setting the wrong way, and then after coming out of it, how long will it take to get back on track, right? And so before I get into the rest of the overview there, this is kind of something that I've done, not a lot, but I've done at least several. I guess I can only think of this being the third one, noticeable one that I've ran. But I think that doing experiments, even on a small scale in your own life, is like really beneficial to understanding what's going on. I've only ever written down like, hey, I'm going to do this and see what happens, and then write down what my findings are. I've only ever done that a few times, this being the third, like I said, but I try to incorporate some experiment just to like test, especially socially. I like to test how people work and how responses are, and what my input gets in terms of output, and if I change this, what can I do here? And I think that really helps understand how the world works around you and how you work and whatnot. Like, so this one obviously is testing my beliefs in terms of positive behaviors and whatnot, and how long they last for in a drought. Another one that I did a long time ago, the first one that I did that I actually got from the internet, was like some spy tactic thing that I saw when I was like 14, 15, and I tried it out, where essentially in conversations, especially with new people, you try to give as little information about yourself as possible while getting as much information out of the other person as you can. And I think this is really interesting, because what ended up happening is I could talk literally nothing about myself and only ask questions about them, and it would run on forever and they would never notice. And even if they did ask me a question, I could give some bland answer that didn't really solve what they were looking for, and then I could just flip it around quickly with another question, and they'd roll into talking about themselves. And so there you go. It kind of highlights some human nature there, and how small interactions work and how people work, and I'm sure you can find ways to use that to your advantage. But it was really interesting that one, to like hold this information in my mind and be able to conduct myself in a way that was not letting the other person know that I was doing this. And then two is like actually seeing the results, and that like, okay, wow, if I do this, the outcome is almost mathematically certain, right? So that was pretty cool. And then the next one that I did, probably when I was, and I did that like extensively with many different people over the course of like, I don't know, a year or so. Not systematically, of course, but to some extent. And then the next one I did with I was probably like 19, 20, maybe. And I would do, it was, what I was testing was if I'm talking about me, like say someone asks me how my day at work was, and I start telling them a story that I am obviously into and excited by, but then halfway through I create a distraction in the environment and then flip it and ask them a question, kind of, I guess, piggybacking off of that, but basically just, it doesn't have to be a question, just steering the conversation in another way. Will they be interested enough and have the attention span that's great enough to return to the question they had asked, knowing that I hadn't finished what I was saying? Almost never. Almost never. So as soon as like I could get into talking about, my grandpa's in the hospital, and I start telling that story, and then I drop something, or there's something loud outside and I use that real quick, or I, oh shit, swerve out of the way of a pothole, and then quick steer the conversation somewhere else. They almost never go back to revisit what you had said before. And I would think that if someone were to do that, it is very telling that they're really interested in what you have to say. And so I think that that's a good little test that you can run if you can pull it off, to see how how much people are actually listening to you, and if the person that you're talking to regularly actually like wants to know what you have to say. And maybe it's not even that. Maybe it's just they don't have the attention span to remember that. Oh yeah, we were talking about something else. But anyways, I kind of want to advocate real quick for an experimentation process, because I think that it really helps, man. It just, at least for me, it helps me see how things actually work. It's like looking at, I like the social aspect a lot more. Like I guess this one is kind of more personal and not so social, but I guess it pertains to much more. But I like the social concepts because then I can see society as like a machine, and I can see how direct inputs, maybe not so much society, but conversation, the machine of conversation with different individuals, how this input causes this output, and how the machine that you're dealing with is very similar across all boards. Like most people that you talk to, you're going to get the exact same response, and rarely you're going to get one that kind of offsets the hypothesis of the experiment, but sometimes you do, and then, hey, I know something new about this person. Huh, fun fact. There you go. But all that being said, we will jump right into this whole experiment and dissect what was going on with that. Cool. So I tried to do this raw dog and just like not write anything down and just power through. And I recorded 30 minutes and it was total dog shit. So we are back to the drawing board. I had to write out everything, and I've got my little notey notes here, which makes sense. I've heard mixed reviews of me reading off of notes for the normal ones, but this one is, something a little bit more in depth, I think. So for the overview, I have a couple questions. What did I hope to gain out of this experiment? So I hope to gain a more clear understanding of what works and what doesn't, first of all. So I wanted to see, okay, basically I'm creating a brand around optimization. And so, therefore, I better know what the fuck I'm talking about. Because if I'm creating a brand around this, and then suddenly, there's a challenge, and none of the stuff that I've been talking about actually works, that's a problem. Because now I'm, just a town fool. So, I just can't be putting out information that I don't know to be verifiable and factual and completely true. So, therefore, ain't nobody else going to test it right now because ain't nobody else watching these damn videos. But due process, I wanted to test it myself and make sure that my beliefs hold up and are actually true in what I'm doing. And if they aren't, then I can come back and say, hey, so I did this experiment and half the things that I talk about doing all the time didn't actually make a difference, right? And then I also wanted to see, because half the experiment is taking the time off, and then half the experiment is coming back and seeing, is my progress exponential since I'm coming from a down low? Because it's kind of testing the what do we call it? Slingshot hypothesis, slingshot method, kind of in a nutshell. Although I do have comments on that, which I don't believe I wrote down, but we'll do that real quick and we'll come back to it. Just testing that, and is the progress going to be greater? How long does it take to fall off? How long does it take to get back? Do I notice any real detriment in my progress, or do I just hop right back into the routine? That's what I was testing. What I thought was going to happen, my hypothesis, was that near immediately I was going to start seeing, maybe not physical, because I stopped going to the gym, everything. So no gym. I greatly increased my alcohol intake, no diet, ate like pretty much just mozzarella sticks and burgers for 5 weeks. I guess I should have mentioned it was 5 weeks long. I started at 1 week, but I didn't notice anything too terrible, so I extended to 5 weeks, right? So diet was poor, sleep schedule was poor. I consumed a lot more quick media, so YouTube Shorts, entertainment YouTube videos, no education whatsoever. So I wasn't reading, I wasn't consuming educational podcasts, I wasn't, reading any articles, I wasn't watching any documentaries. It was only movies, entertainment, music. That's it. My car rides that I talk about, that I'm silent to and from work, I listened to podcasts and music and whatever the hell I wanted to, all that stuff. So my hypothesis was, I got all these things stacked up that do great things, that as soon as I take all them away, I think that immediately I'm going to notice a difference, and I'm going to start feeling that like right away. And I didn't think that anything was going to hold up over time, and that I was going to kind of fall into a rut, and it was going to be like a rough process. And was I correct? No, absolutely not. I was not. And why I felt it important to run this experiment, I already kind of got into that. Cool. So, was I correct? No, I was not. I thought that it was going to be like day 1, 2, and 3 immediately was going to start, cognitively especially, failing more and more and more. Like my brain power was just going to, fall off like a anvil off a cliff kind of deal. But it didn't happen. So I got this broken down by weeks. Like I said, I did 5 weeks. And I think that there are pretty obvious milestones through the process. And like I said, I wanted to do this for 1 week where I do nothing. Because like I said, I thought it was going to be immediate. Bad day, bad Nick. But at the end of the first week, I was like, nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. I don't feel bad. In fact, I feel pretty good. So... And then I was like, well, why don't I extend it to the rest of the month? And I had a vacation at the end of the month, so I figured right when I get back from vacation, that'll be 5 weeks, and we'll just cut it there and then return to normal. And we'll see what happens then. So like I said, first week, it was nothing. It was like a good, well-deserved break, a vacation. Oh, like I finally could take a deep breath and not worry about all the stuff that I've been worrying about and pushing all the stuff that I've been doing and constantly worrying about how to make sure the house is clean and everything's getting put up and every problem's getting tackled right away. My diet, my exercise, my plans, my future, my, channel, book, all this stuff, worrying about all that stuff. As soon as I stopped, it was a really nice breather. And my body didn't really change. Even though I hadn't gone to the gym in a week, wasn't really, and this is actually the first 2 weeks. So for the first 2 weeks, I didn't really notice any changes in my mental state. I was still clear, I was still concise, even though I was, engaging in some pretty, heavily entertaining and dopaminergic, I don't know if that's a word, we'll back off that. The rewards system of my brain was just getting dumped on, just dump happy chemicals, and yet I was fine. Nothing, still looked like I had just stepped out of the gym. I still was operating fine. No immediate downfall, to my surprise, which I was pretty shocked. I was like, wow, maybe this is going to be like a freaking great 5 weeks, and I'm just going to have a great time and then just hop right back on the bike. Not the case either. So right around week 3, beginning of week 3, I started to notice, especially cognitively, decline. Just slow little ticks where I would notice myself slipping up, or I'd notice like I'd be clumsier, not my attention. I wasn't as focused, like dropping things and losing things, and again, not all the time. It was very slow ticking away, but I could feel it. I could definitely feel a change, and I could feel like, I don't normally make these kind of mistakes. So obviously something's happening here. And that persisted over the following 2 weeks, so week 3 and 4. daily, I would say, or maybe every couple days, I would feel that I had definitely dropped off a little bit. And it started to get harder to do like bare minimum tasks, like clean the house and make sure the dishes are done so that I have stuff to cook with, and plates to eat on and things like that. It was just like stuff was piling up. And then noticing that problems are piling up because I'm not taking care of them, and then the anxiety that causes, and then that's kind of like leading me back into more cognitive decline because I'm worried about the stuff that I haven't done, so I can't focus on the stuff that I'm trying to do, which is again more nothing. So it wasn't super difficult then, but it was definitely noticeable that okay, like this stuff's starting to have an effect on me. And I still enjoyed it. I tried to remember that it was an experiment, which did help. It helped kind of ease all the emotion. I could kind of sit above what I was feeling, this lack of energy, lack of motivation, lack of drive, lack of clarity and focus. I could kind of sit above that and just look at them as symptoms of an external patient, which did help. But at the end of the day, it's still me. So, there are some effects there. And tried to really embrace it as well. Like, even though I started noticing decline, I tried to really embrace, like, okay, this is a break, and I have to kind of go hard or go home, because I'm not going to do this once every 6 months to where I just ruin all my progress for no reason, or maybe not for no reason, but for just to test stuff that I don't, whatever. I'm not going to do this all the time is the point. So I might as well really dig deep on this and see what has an effect. So, then I started to increase all my negative behaviors. So like, I wake up in the morning, crack a beer, right? Immediately 8 mozzarella sticks, throw on a movie, maybe play some video games, sit on the couch, and then later on go to work, blast in music or a podcast on the way there, just really trying to fill every moment with something that I wouldn't normally do, to try and really double down on the process. That was around end of week 3, beginning of week 4. And I wouldn't say that substantially increased the rate of decline, but it made it fun. It made it fun to try and creatively, ruin my life a little bit, but kind of similar rates. Anyways, like it wasn't like suddenly I started doing more bad stuff and it was like, nah, it kind of just like still steadily went down. And then week 5, I would say, this is the final week. I would say it's a little bit difficult to say exactly what happened because, like I said, I went on vacation and it was a really nice vacation and I had a really great time. So I feel like the height of emotions maybe would mask some of the symptoms, but I'd say in retrospect, seeing the content of conversations that I was having and the things that I was thinking about and the things that I was doing, it's obvious that the decline was still continuing, but to what extent, I'm not sure, because I wasn't, trying to go to work. I wasn't existing in the same spaces that I normally do, operating in the same manners that I normally do. So it's kind of outside of the test area, and therefore the test results are like, okay. Like I can make some judgments, but I'm not quite sure that they're 100% accurate, just for total honesty's sake. But I will say that, let's see what we got. By the 5th week, some things that I did notice was total lack of motivation. It's like if I'm not chilling and drinking and just hanging out, feet in the sand and whatnot, like I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do anything that is even remotely productive, right? And then also I noticed that all sense of purpose was gone. So like, normally I'm, not to toot my tutor here, but exploding with ideas. Like constantly there's things coming to me like, okay, yeah, that's got some legs. I could do something with that. Oh, I could put that in here. I could do that. Just branches of business and things like that could stem off of each other in the future. And, I'll be writing them down and I store them and I save them and whatnot. But none of that. All gone. And not only that, but if I tried to think about the future, I didn't care. I just wanted to exist as I was existing. I didn't want to pursue anything better. I didn't want to make anything happen. Like even YouTube, didn't care. Whatever. Channel, whatever. And it wasn't like a serious, I'm quitting this, but it was like, I just really don't care anymore. Like, I don't want to do this. It means like I'm just grinding it out. What am I doing? And I guess that kind of sounds doubtful. It wasn't even really doubt. It was just a total resignment of, yeah, it's okay. I'm good. I'm good on that. Which I thought was interesting, because then it's like, coming back, I had to convince myself back into these things. But at the very end there, I could feel my body longing for structure, for rhythm, for duties to perform, and some kind of disciplined action. I could feel it within me, and I think that is something that exists all the time. Like, I haven't always been structured at all. Like, this is a very new thing in my life. I would say the last 2 years I've had an explosion of productivity, but before that I was like pretty regular ass guy, and not super lazy, but like not going to try and change my life every day. And I still remember feeling that, like, man, I wish I could do more. I wish, it's kind of like when you're drunk late at night with your buddy and you're like, man, we should freaking start this business and do all this crazy stuff. It's like, I think that is this internal longing for something better and bigger. And that's what I started to feel at the end of the 5th week, or sometime around the fifth week. And to the point where, actually, when I returned from vacation, there was still 1 day left of the experiment time that was the 5 weeks. And I just decided, like, you know what? I don't know that I'm going to gain much more from continuing for another 24 hours, if that. So I'm just going to cut it here. And then that day I went back to the gym. I started eating right. Oh yeah, I was like smoking and vaping and stuff like that as well, like kind of whenever I wanted. So quit that immediately. Like I said, diet. I tried to re-implement as many of the things as I could reasonably without, shell shocking the system. And because I just couldn't stay like that anymore. It was like almost unbearable. I definitely could have stuck it out probably, but it was like, nah, bro, I just got to get back. I got to get back to what I was doing. I just feel so off the wagon. But yeah, it was very interesting. I had a great time. I thought it was pretty interesting, especially, like I said, tuning out of the emotions for a moment and just looking at it as an experiment point of view and seeing, like, okay, I can see what's happening here, and I can see why, and just really paying attention to the inner emotions that I'm feeling and why they are coming out, and at what point in this process are they, and then relating that back to, like, how I was before, even trying to become productive, and then also how I was when I was productive, and just seeing the contrast in between. It was pretty sweet. And again, advocation for experimentation, dude. Just, you test stuff out, you try it out, and you pay attention. It helps if you write it down too, because the only reason I remember all of this stuff is because I was actively communicating about it during, and so I can remember all the things that I said. And then now, going back through, I can remember everything accurately. But if I hadn't talked to anyone and I had just gone through the process, I definitely would have forgotten everything, because you change while you're experimenting things, and when you learn things, the system changes, and sometimes you forget the questions you were asking and how you felt and stuff like that. So I think it's really important to document as you go, so that you remember, okay, yes, this is what I'm trying to do, this is what I did to test it, and this is what my results were, this is how I felt about it, right? And so you have a log of stuff that goes through the time period, instead of just at the end trying to remember, like, oh, what was it like when I was like just smashing burgers every day, stuff like that. Cool. So, okay, so I have conclusions here, and then I've got a little bit of stuff, and then that kind of wraps us up. But one of the conclusions, that the thing that I was talking about, the slingshot method, I don't think, because this primarily started off as a test for the slingshot method, and then it transitioned into more of like a belief testing thing. I don't think that it was an accurate test of the slingshot method, which, if you're new here or if you're unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, I've previously called it the zipline method, But essentially, it's my process, my hypothesis, my method for like if you're doing really bad in life, then get a little bit worse, and then kick in all your really good stuff and start like just implementing changes on a regular basis. So, start something good and then wait like a couple days, start another good thing that stacks on top of that. And then you do that, and then you get this super insane arc of progress that just blasts you out of the despair zone and then gets you into where you want to be. And this I have to, oh, that's another one that I did test. Sort of accidentally the first time, and then the second and third time I did on purpose, and it worked great. And then this time was the first time that I tried to like ruin it first and then come back out. Usually it's like I'm already doing shit, and then okay, let's just test this out and go boop, 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 boop. But this time I was like, what if I ruin it first intentionally and then come out of it intentionally to test? Now that I have a better understanding of what I want to see, I can test the rate of change. I can test what exact variables changed the things the most and stuff like that. But like I said, I don't think it was an accurate test because I didn't feel the true despair of like my inactions are ruining my life, because it was all intentional, right? Because normally you get this lagging feeling of like, man, I should have taken care of that problem with my car 6 weeks ago. And then you don't take care of it now, and then it continues. And then that just happens with, I should have done that research paper, I should have started like last month. I have all this time, why don't I start early? But you haven't, and it slowly adds up. And so when you have all these things that start stacking on top of each other, it's this like, almost like an I'm worthless kind of energy that comes in, where it's like, man, just because I'm being lazy, I'm ruining my life. And I think that adds something to the accountability that you feel after coming out of the slingshot method, because you did the bad stuff by just being not accountable, and then by being accountable you are now doing good stuff and in a good place and in a better place and a higher place, right? Well, here it's like I just intentionally ruined my life for the foreseeable 5 weeks just to test what things were going on. So it wasn't really negligence. It wasn't really a lack of accountability. It was all manufactured. It was all just part of a play, essentially. And so I never really felt that same level of despair, of like unhappiness, I guess. Like the unhappiness that I felt was more from the lack of organization and rules and systems and stuff like that. Not so much unhappiness with myself. So there, I don't think that it is an accurate test, so I will not say that I have proved or disproved the slingshot method, although I still personally believe that it is a great method to use. I can't say that this is evidence for its success. So, rest of the conclusions here. Obviously, as we see, I didn't see any detriment really until like the third week. And now, I would say that I've been doing really, really good on most things for, like a long time, 6 months to a year. So established habits were pretty good. And so my brain was in a habit of operating on this wavelength. And so switching back, I don't think that, I think I bought myself some time by being so accountable most of the time. And so, 2 weeks, it's okay. The point being there is that, one, I don't think that you're going to get as much time afforded to you if you've been doing great for like 2 days and then you take a week off break, right? I think you're going to slump right back into where you were. That being said, if you have been doing really good, obviously it doesn't hurt to take a little break. And in fact, I really enjoyed it. And I think that if I would find a way to implement that regularly, I would really benefit from it, to where you just kind of let your mind release of all these cables that you've tied to it to be productive, and just exist and just enjoy the present and the moment, and see what's around you and experience things just as they are without thinking about how to make everything better. I think that there is benefit to that. And it's not going to, if you take 4 days off of your 7 months of progress, you're not going to ruin everything. You're not back to square one. You may lose a couple squares, sure. You may lose like a couple days of progress that you would have had otherwise, but you're not back at the beginning. And so I think that that's important to remember and not hold so tight to everything that you're doing. in fear of losing it. I think if you're afraid of losing it, then you're not really doing it for the right reason. But anywho, and as I've said many times before, it's how quickly do you get back on track, right? So we have this 5 weeks, and at the end of that 5 weeks, I could have definitely just stayed shitty. I could have, like I said, I'm going to go 5 weeks and then hop back on the wagon. But I could have just kept going. Like, I could have been lazy and not accountable, and I could have just kept, with these bad habits. I would say that some bad habits are at least slightly lingering, but nothing that is actually affecting performance that I'm aware of, right? And I've been back doing normal stuff for like a week and a half, I think, maybe 2 weeks now. But it's just, like I had to hop right back onto where I was going, because otherwise, like if I procrastinate, well, we'll just wait one more day. Maybe just at the end of the week, maybe we just finish out this month, right? Then you get in the same habit where 3 years down the line, you're like, man, I should get back in the gym, But it's like, dude, you should have been back in the gym, after the 5 weeks. So it's how quickly do you get back up on the horse, dog? You fall off, you got to get back up right away. Don't even cry about it. Just hop back up. Cry about it later, right? So I think that is a key takeaway here. So it's easy to get back into a bad rhythm. So like I was kind of saying, is that I had an established system of habits that was positive. And so it's easier for me to fall back on my previous habit system than continuing with what is out of the ordinary. Now, the same cannot be said, or the same can be said if you have a bad system of habits and then you're doing good for 5 weeks and then, you fall off and you hop right back on the old pattern system. Your body wants homeostasis. It wants to return to the normal. And if your normal is eating only mozzarella sticks and burgers and beer every single day and vaping to your heart's content and, just watching movies and doing nothing with your life, sitting on the couch in your underwear, as I was, then your body's going to want to fall back into that pattern. But if your habit for a long period of time has been gym, diet, thinking about goals, visualizing goals, planning on how to get there, taking action to get there, seeing your progress, tracking your finances, doing all these things and trying to stack more things on top of that and just be better every single day, and then you fall off, it's going to be easier to hop back into that rhythm because your body is used to it. So again, if you're thinking about, hey man, I've been going to the gym for like 4 weeks and I'm just not really having a great time, I just want to take like a couple days break. Just remember that, as soon as you take that break, it's going to be harder to come back. So just power through. And then once you get like 3 to 6 months of hard work in, then think about taking a break and do it intentionally and intelligently and make sure that you're not falling off for no reason, right? And make sure you have a plan on how you're going to get back. Because if you don't, have fun staying in the shit zone forever, I guess. Jesus, typical. Cool. Oh yeah, and then I guess the big one here that we saw at the end is that a lack of accountability can suck the purpose from your life. And this is a big one. Because, I'd say that if I felt as motivated and as purposeful as I do every day while I was on the break, then I would really have no justification for going to the gym all the time. Like, I want to look huge, sure, and like I want to be fit and healthy, but like if I'm still super driven all the time just because, like, without even trying, and I'm doing BS all the time, then there's not really an incentive to stay. But obviously it's the opposite. So when you don't have accountability, when you don't act with purpose, you are not rewarded with purpose. So if you are accountable all the time, you are adding a little bit more purpose to your life, and then you will see that there is something, worth working towards, and then that motivation will build. And if you don't, work towards anything, you're not going to have that next goal that materializes in your mind and say, oh, holy shit, I can work towards that now. And then you start working towards that and you find another one, and the goalpost is always moving. But you don't have that if you're working towards nothing, if you're just existing, right? And that was the biggest takeaway, because obviously, like me doing this and me, working on all the other things that I'm working on, it's so that I can change my life and change the lives of those around me, right? So if I wasn't doing any of this, then I wouldn't be even motivated to do that. And therefore, as we talked about in the past, the responsibility that you have to your community members and those around you, your family, your friends, and whatnot, where would they be? I'm just going to wait for somebody else to white knight his way into my life or her way into my life and fix everything that's broken? I have no idea, right? So if you are in a bad way, just, if you need a little bit of kick in the ass to wake up and be like, man, why should I do this? Why should I go to the gym? Why should I be nicer? Why should I, learn about investment? Because otherwise you are robbing yourself of a real sense of purpose that fulfills you in pretty much every way, right? Like the process of having an insane, almost insurmountable goal, but working towards it every day and seeing the progress that you are getting closer is the best thing that you can ask for. And so if you are stealing that from yourself, then not only are you stealing it from yourself through your poor actions and your bad accountability measures, but you're stealing it from everyone that you could be giving it to otherwise. So all the people that you could have blessed will now not be blessed because you are refusing to even give the effort, the little bit of oomph that you could be giving to yourself, especially yourself and those around you, right? So that's big takeaway. I would say one of the biggest takeaways here that I didn't really anticipate. I thought that I was just going to be like more foolishly optimistic about business goals, but not at all, dude. I did not give a fuck, man. I did not care. I did not care about YouTube. I did not want to come back here and start writing scripts. I did not want to come back here. I've even procrastinated making these videos. It's been like I said, like I've been back for 2 weeks and I haven't recorded a video yet. Part of that is because I wanted to see how my mind changed and so that I could have a more clear view of how negative it was in the past. But a lot of it was procrastination as well. So, not great. Not super great. And, it really highlights kind of what, we've been talking about all this time about, do great and you're going to want to do more great. And then if you do great, everybody else is going to do great. To super dumb it down, right? But that being said, dude, this freaking arm of my chair is drinking more of this thing than me. But anywho, I would say that learning about dopamine, which I'm not sure if I've mentioned in the past, would make a lot of this even more clear, because dopamine basically is the biggest player in your reward system pathway of your brain. And so understanding how that works, I think I have mentioned this at least a little bit, but understanding how it works really gives you some tools to leverage activities and behaviors in your life to make yourself feel more of that purpose and more of that passion and more of that motivation and that drive. When you wake up hungry and you want it, like if you can think back when you've had a big goal and it's just something that, God, you want so bad you could fucking taste it, right? Good, healthy levels of dopamine, baseline, right, really gives you that. That is the gift that you give yourself through positive actions and through not jamming in all this heavy endorphin stuff like smoking, right, or vaping, or quick short videos, or filling music with every second of the day. You kind of rob yourself of that just through the rewards pathway. So another takeaway here is learn about dopamine, dog. I don't harp on it enough. Learning, Jesus H. Lord, learning about dopamine has sincerely changed my life and my understanding of how to more healthily organize my mind, and understanding just the chemistry that happens in my brain when I make certain choices. And so now I know the exact outcome that is coming from my actions, because I know how chemically my brain is going to respond and how that's going to change everything. Because dopamine changes your entire perception of life. It changes your fucking time perception, right? So the way that reality functions around you is completely determined by your levels, high, low, peak, valley, whatever, poor baseline, healthy baseline of dopamine. So if you don't learn about it, you're basically leaving it to chance. And you can, like I've said, succeed accidentally. It happens all the time. Most people don't know shit about dopamine. I don't know a single other person who's been talking about it other than me, right? Other than the big wigs. Talk about Huberman. Shout out Huberman. And Lamke. I just bought her book. It's pretty good so far. But anyways, it's one neurotransmitter, neuromodulator, whichever it classifies as. There's plenty of great resources out there. Just check it out. Watch Huberman's first podcast that he did on it, and then you can watch the one that he just recently did about leveraging it. Read Anna Lemke's book, Dopamine Nation, which I'm about halfway through right now. It's freaking brilliant. She does a lot of dopamine podcasts as well. If you don't feel like reading, she did one with Tom Bilyeu. That one I know. I'm not actually sure what other ones she's done. More of a Huberman fan than a Lemke fan, personally. But anywho, just check it out, man. I promise it's going to change the way you understand stuff. So, and even the things that I'm saying here, like the pleasure-pain balance and all that stuff, like all of the things that you learn from dopamine, you can immediately plug into everything that I've just said, and it would make even more sense. Stuff that I don't really even understand yet, because I've kind of hopped off the learning train for a freaking month. So, I'm a little stale. But that's another big, huge takeaway. Cool? Sweet. So, with all that in the tank, I have a little bit of stuff on now that we're back. So, like, basically what I've been feeling since I've been back, and what has changed and what I've noticed and whatnot. So first off, the first 2 days at work, I was like mentally impaired. I have never experienced something like that. Like, I have nightmares a lot of going to work and my brain doesn't work. Somebody spiked my drink, or like I drank too much or whatever. Like I'm drunk or I'm high or something and I can't perform my duties. I got a lot of nightmares like that, and it was similar to that, where like I'm just fucking up, and like I'm trying, but I'm just fucking up, and I couldn't hear for some reason. Like I was having a hard time hearing people, and not only hearing people, but like comprehending what they were saying. Like, when somebody says something, you go, huh? And then like a second later, you realize what they said. That's a comprehension issue. You didn't not hear them. You heard them, but your brain just has to take a while to process what the information that was said is. And then you go, oh yeah, right. And then you answer the question before they say it again. Same shit, except like there was no comprehension, right? Somebody would say something to me and I'd look at them and be like, what? And they'd say it again. I'd say, what? And someone that I talk to all the time, right? Like my partner or my boss or my coworkers, or, not customers. I don't talk to them all the time, but I talk to customers in general all the time. And I couldn't understand shit anybody was saying. I was having such a hard time. And so maybe there is some correlation there. I'm not sure. But that was only the first 2 days of being back on track, which I didn't experience that during the break, so I'm not sure what that came from. But then started to feel better and started to kind of slide back into the rhythm. Within a week, already feeling the return of motivation, already feeling more driven and more goal-oriented and more, because at first, even when I came back, I was like, I don't care about the future, dude. I don't care. Like, I've got a whole freaking map right here about every single thing that I want to do, pretty much, and how it's all intercorrelated and webbed together. I could throw that sucker in the trash. But now, after about just a week, it started coming back right. And even now, it's still coming back. I would say it's not perfect, but I also haven't perfected my behaviors yet. We're still working on it. But tie that back into dopamine, baby. Tie that back into dopamine. Start regulating your dopamine levels. Stop jumping on the pleasure side, and then pain side's going to retilt, right? But have a healthy level of dopamine regulation, and then suddenly you're balanced, right? Learn about it, dog. So I'm telling you. Cool. Slipped into good habits like a glove. Yeah, I would say that, like, it wasn't difficult to hop right back into the gym, and like stopping smoking wasn't that difficult, and re-recording finances every day wasn't that hard. Yeah, I guess. Oh yeah, and I immediately reintroduced new levels of training. I haven't started doing running yet, so I'd say we're still working on adding new stuff and better things, but so far getting right back into the things that I was doing has been pretty, without problem. Okay, and then pushing through physical mental barriers. I guess this can kind of account for the zipline method or the slingshot method, but I'm not sure if, like I said, I don't really want to classify it as evidence. But when I, especially going back to the gym for the first time, I hadn't worked out in 5 weeks. And yet some exercises, I was stronger than when I left. So I think that there was maybe just some mental barriers that I'd put up within myself that was not allowing me to access certain levels of strength, which, talking about tinfoil hat shit, I've got some pretty good theories on physiology and mental capacity and how they correlate, but we'll get into that at a separate time. But it was interesting to see that, I come back and it's like, okay, when I left, I was, incline pressing 60s decently, and then now I'm throwing up 80s, right? And before, it's like I've been benching for a while and I couldn't quite get to the 90s, and now I'm throwing up 90s. Now, this being said, there were plenty of times where I was throwing up more than 90 pounds on dumbbell press, but since I reorganized my training and I had lowered all of the stuff and raised the volume, raised the rep ranges and everything like that, it was a little bit different, but essentially weakening myself for no reason, but we'll fix that now. But according to the training that I was doing, this stuff was kind of unheard of, and now I got right back into it and worked pretty well. So other than that, I would say get a little bit of remaining acid reflux, kind of, just a little bit, the bottom of my esophagus is just a little bit hot, but that's what happens when you cram in nasty food for 5 weeks, man, and just drinking alcohol. That stuff is rough on your system, dude. And probably the vapes don't help, man. I assume it's probably oil-based, and you're just inhaling it straight down your gullet, so I have to imagine that leads to some kind of irritation and inflammation. So, not great, but it's gotten better. Hopefully we'll see a change there. Other than that, sleep was pretty poor coming back, but starting to get better sleep now. Still not perfect. It was great during, but not so great after. Also, I would say, interestingly enough, testosterone, this is purely anecdotal, I would say. I don't have blood tests or anything to tell you that this is true, so tune out, whatever. But I would say that I felt higher levels of testosterone when I was doing nothing, right? And, whatever, than I do now, back in the gym. And I think that part of that is because of my 7-day split, and that I'm basically super maxing my stats to try and get as big and as lean as possible in the next 2 months before I go home for my brother's graduation. Because that guy's about to get put under the ground, son. If he's watching this, you're done. You're done, boy. But anyway, so I think that since my body's repairing itself so heavily, then testosterone is dropping for some reason. And I've also lost fat, so that probably has something to do with it, but I'm not sure. But that is interesting, because I thought as soon as I stepped back in the gym, I'd be like a freaking roid rage monster and just be so pumped full of hormones that I couldn't even be able to stand, which actually was the case for the first couple of days, but shortly after that, not the case. So the transition period was not great, but I think I'm kind of just talking to hear myself at this point. I think that kind of wraps it all up. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you thought this was pretty cool or didn't, whatever. If it was insightful or whatnot. I mean, I basically risked my life I guess I did it for me, but added benefit of you guys watching. So let me know, man. Let me know. It feels good to be back. I'm probably going to grind out a couple of videos. Also, I'm going to be bumping up to 2 days a week. I'm going to try to anyways. Might be a little shaky at the start, as any habit is, but it'll take. So that's what we're going to do. hopefully going to be buying a better camera pretty soon and fixing my setup a little bit more so the quality is a little better, so that I look good and whatnot. But other than that, I think we're clear, baby. I think we're clear. I think I got through everything I need to do. No recap necessary. Watch the video again, baby. Thank you guys so much for sticking in. Appreciate you a ton. Interact with the video, do the stuff, the likes and the all that jazz. Maybe leave a comment. I would like, subscribes are cool because then I can monetize this. But personally, I don't really care. Like, I care about the monetization because I like money, but I don't really care if people like or subscribe. But I do want interactions, man. I want to see what people are thinking. I want to see comments. I want to see what's going on down there. I know there's not a whole lot of you out there right now, but hopefully there's going to be some kind of inflow at some point. And then, when that happens and you see this, I might be a year down the line, but I still want to see what you got to say, and I want to see what you think about what I think, and we'll talk this stuff over and exchange ideas. That's what this is all about. So with that being said, again, I thank you, and Nick out.